Okay, students, in this session, I am going to discuss with you regarding the variables. What are the variables? What are the various types of variables available in the Java? Then afterwards, we will move on the data types, various types of data types which are available in the Java. Now let's move to the first topic, that is the variable. Variable is basically the memory which we allocate to particular any identifier. Whenever we allocate some memory to any identifier, that is called a variable. Like here, data. Data is one identifier. When we have attached it with the data type, then it becomes the variable. And the memory allocated, that is called the variable. And the value of this data can be varied. You can insert 50, you can insert any value within that. That the variables, those value can be changed. That is called a variable. Variable is a container which hold the values while the Java program is executed. Variable is assigned with the data type, and the variable is the name of the memory location which is available. It provides the memory location. As you can see in this slide, there is one RAM block. By writing the data equal to 10, it start providing the memory into the RAM. That is according to the data type which you are using in your program. If you are using the integer type, that means according to Java, it occupies 4 bytes of memory. Now, in Java, the variables are basically of the 3 types. One is local variables. Second is the instance variable. Third is the static variables. Now let's start with the local variables. Local variables declared inside the body of the method. Method means function is called the local variables. And you can use these variables only within that method. And other methods in the program are not even aware that the variable exists. I repeat, the local variables can be used within the method only. It will not used outside the method. If you try to use it outside the method, it will start generating an error. And local variables cannot be defined with the static keyword. First, local variables never defined outside the method, means functions. Secondly, local variables cannot be defined with the static keyword. That is the local variables. Second comes the instance variable. The variables declared inside the class, but outside the body of the method. That is called the instance variables. And it is not declared as a local. Instant variables are also not declared as a static. It is called an instance variable because its value is instance specified and not shared among any instances. Now, third variable is static variables. The variables that declared as static are called the static variables, and these static variables can never be local. Static variables always create a single copy, and that will be shared within the whole program. Static variables always contain the static memory. It will be loaded only once within the program and used within the whole program. That is static variables. Now, let's move to the ID and implement these 3 variables. I am going to write the program of variables which include all these variables. Let's start with the start. We always start the code with the class. Class is the keyword. Then afterwards we write the program. Like if I want to variables, I will write here the variable code. Variable example. Okay, this is our program. Now within that, as you know, first we write the public static void main. Within that, string, that is the data type, argument, array, within the square brackets, then bracket. For that, close that bracket and close the bracket of class also. Now within this bracket, now first I am going to work on the local variables. As you know, the local variables, as you can see the definition, the local variables declared inside the method of the body, declare inside the body of the method. We declare it in the body of the method. So it means we have to create one method. Method means function. So here I am going to create one method. Void any method name, like if I'm writing here F1, that is one method, bracket. Within that method, I'm writing here int n equal to 90. It means this int n represent that is a variable. This n represent that is a variable. And 90 means I am initializing the value of n with 90. And within the brackets, within the method, that means this is the local variable. This is a local variable. Okay. Now, here I am going to write the system dot out dot println. Within that, value is plus and n, that is concatenation and semicolon. Now let's save the code. Java CSC3. Within that, the name of the program is, that is, what is the name of the program? What is the class name?
Variable type.
That is the
Variable
example. Variable example. Dot Java. Save the code. First, I am making the command to this part. Now, let's run the code. Again, Java C, variable B is capital, example dot Java plus n. There is an error. Concatenation. Oh, command. So let's save the code again. Save the code again and run the code. You can see now there is no error. You can see there is no error. But when I try to display or fetch the value of n, which is present in this local method, it will display error because outside the method, no one know about the n. The scope of n is only within this bracket to this bracket. If I try to fetch this value, if I try to fetch the value of n outside this method, then it will start generating error. But if I write this line, x b, if I write this line here, save the code, no error, and let's run it. display cout. It will not execute because we have not called the function. As you know, the main always execution start from the main. First, we have to make the object, then only you can fetch the value. Okay. So till now, it will not display anything because we had not created any object. We had not created any object. That's why this function will not be called. Okay. This is all about the local variable. This is all about the local variable. Now let's move to the another variable type, that is the instance variable. Instance variable, the variable which we write within the main program. Which we write within the main program. That is called the instance variable. So, any variable which is written within the main program, that is called the instance variable. This instant variable can be used, or we can fetch the value of this instant variable data. Let's save the code. Let's run it. No error. And you can see the value is 100. As in this case, we can able to fetch the data because both are in the same block and in the main. Okay, this is called the instance variable. This is called the local variable. Now I am going to create the static variable. Static variables, according to the definition, you can see the variable that is declared as static is called a static variables. Means whenever we want to make any variable static, then we have to write the static keyword. Like int a1 equal to 10. So if I want to make any static variable, I have to write the static keyword first thing. And that static cannot be local, means we can't write this static within the local part. We can't write this static variable into the local part. Okay, that is one thing. Next, according to the definition, you can create a single copy of the static variables. By writing the static variable, the single copy will be created for the whole program. And that will be used by all the instance of the program. Means all the instance of programs can be used within this program, within the program. Now let's run it. You can see. We always write the static keyword in front of the variable that become the static variable, and we never write it within the local part. That is the one thing. Now I am going to run the first. Let display it. Copy, paste, and here the value a1. Let's save it. Again, here I am going to no error, and you can see here. Now the static value. Remember this thing. We can't write any definition, like this statement can be always written within the block. You can't write like this. You can't write any statement like this. Save the code. You can see it starts generating an error. You can only write the statement within the block. That can be the method, that can be the main method. Oh, okay. Now if I try, now I am going to place the static variable like here also. Save the code. Now you can see. Again it starts generating an error. Again it starts generating an error. Let's save me the program. The error is the system out. I'm again saving the code. Run the code and you can see the errors. It contains multiple errors. If I remove this line from here and save again, place the line here, save the code, run the code, you can see no error. Now you can see that the static can be used only outside the main. We can never use the static variable within the main. Only within the main variable we can able to use the instance variable. We can't use any. If I write this here, then is this and become the instance variable. Within this part, this is the local variable. That is all about the variables and the types of the variable. Now let's move to the next topic, that is the data types in Java. In Java, data types are basically divided into the two types. One is the primitive and second is the non-primitives. Before discussing about the types, the term is data types. Data type is basically used to specify different sizes and the values that can be stored in the variable. Means which type of data you want to store and how much memory should it occupy. How much memory should be occupied by any type of data. That is called data type. Then only we use the data types. And in Java, we divide the data types into the two types. One is the primitive and second is the non-primitive. As you can see in the slide also, primitive again divided into the Boolean. Boolean means that true and false values. Numeric represent the any integer value. Like any integer value, that is called an integral value, and integral subdivided into the integer values and the floating values. And also with character. Character means any character type, any letter, that is called a character. Now you can see here, there is a data types that is byte. Byte is also one data type which is available in Java. Short is a data type which is available in Java. Int is data type which is available in data. Long, that is also available in data type available in Java. Float is another data type which is available in Java. Double is also available in Java. These all data types which are inbuilt data types, and the meaning of these data types are predefined, and these are called the primitive data types. The meaning and the definition of the data types which are predefined, that are called the primitive data types. And non-primitive data types, the data types which are defined by the user, that are called the non-primitive data types. String, array, all these data types are called the non-primitive data types. Now you can see in this table, suppose if I have the Boolean. Boolean is basically used to store the true or false value. If you take no value with any variable that is of the Boolean data type, by default its value is false. By default, if you are not initializing any value of any variable, then by default its value is false. And Boolean always take the 1 byte of memory. Similarly, if you are using the char data type, then by default, if you are not taking any value, then it will store this value. Here you represent that the Java uses the Unicode system. Java uses the Unicode system. And the memory occupied by the particular character is 2 bytes. Whereas in C++, The memory occupied is of the 1 byte, as all of you know about this thing. Now in byte case, by default, it is 0 value, but if you are trying to use it in a C++, it always occupies the garbage value and 1 byte memory. Short contain the 0 value by default. If you are not initializing with any value, then short contain the 2 bytes of memory. Int also by default containing the 0 value, and the size of that int is 4 byte. Long OL 8 bytes, float 0.0f, and 4 bytes, double like this. And these memory storage capacity is fixed for every system. It will not vary because Java is our platform independent language, and it is architectural neutral, as we had discussed in the features of Java. The memory size of Java never changes. It will be fixed. Rather you are using on the 32-bit architecture, or rather you are using the 64-bit architecture. Now you can see how we can write the data type with the variables. Here, Boolean, that is the data type. And one is the variable name. You can write anything which obey the rules of identifier. Equal to false. Equal to false. By default also it is taking. If you write nothing here, then by default also 1 will contain the false value. Now here byte. Byte A 10 and byte B 20. That is also how we can represent the byte in the case of Java. Short, we write the short keyword, that is a data type. Int, we write the int data type. If I want to take the long, we will write the long. We will never write the long int. We just write the long. And always prefer to write the L word also. But with the float value, remember this thing, you have to specify this F word. You have to specify the F word whenever you are initializing the float value. And char, character, letter A. That is how we can display the, how we can store any character within our program. Now, next, as you know, our Java works on the Unicode system. Unicode system means universal, international, standard character encoding. Character encoding. That is the Unicode system. In C++, we use the ASCII code system, but in the Java, we use the Unicode system. The main reason why we are using the Unicode system, because as there are many languages standards are available. As you can see, ASCII code, that is American standard, for United Nations, European languages, IS standard, Russian, KOI standard. All these standards are differ, vary from the country to country. But the Unicode system is that standard which can be used by all these countries. Means one common standard which can be used by the different countries, that is a Unicode system. That's why Java used this system. Java used this Unicode standard. Now, you can see what is the problem that are occurring with the that ASCII code and any particular standard. A particular code value correspond to the different character letters in a various language standards. Means if I am working on the ASCII American standard, I have to know about that. I have to know the codes of that language. If I am working on the KOI standard, I have to know about this. I should have knowledge about, or we should have the knowledge about this standard also if I want to work on this standard. Okay, that's why for handling all these problems, the Java used an Unicode system. Unicode system. New language standard was developed, that is a Unicode system. In Unicode system, it will hold the 2 bytes of characters. Remember this thing. Unicode system always hold the 2 bytes of the memory. Now the various types of commands which are available in Java are single line command, as it is similarly as that of the C++, multiple line command, that is also for the multiple line. If you want to make multiple lines as a command, you can use multi-line command. And documentation commands, this is basically used whenever you want to create any documentation API. When you are working with any API, then only we use these types of command. And for these types of command, we have to use the tool that is called the Java doc tool. Remember this thing, whenever you want to work on any documentation API, while creating the documentation API, you have to use the Java doc tool. Now you can see in this slide also the way how we can represent the command. The single line command can be represented with the double slash, similarly as that of the C++. Multi-line commands can be displayed like the slash, asterisk, and then the set of the statements, then the asterisk and the line. That is called the multi-line. And for documentation commands, that will be used while making any software applications, while creating any API, then you have to use the Java doc tool. And for that, we always use any IDE. Whenever we want to make any documentation command, we use IDE. Till now, we are working on editor. But whenever we want to work on this, we always prefer to use the Java doc tool. And that tool is always easily available on the IDs. That can be NetBeans or any ID. Now, the next concept that is very important and a very interesting topic, that is typecasting. Typecasting means whenever we want to make a conversion from one type to the another type, then we use the typecasting concept. Means if I want to store the data of integer type into the float type, then there is a need of the typecasting. If I want to store the data of integer type into the float, means I am trying to convert the data of one type to the another type. At that time, we need the concept of the typecasting. And in Java, the typecasting is divided into the 2 parts. One is the widening and second is the narrowing. One is the widening and second is the narrowing. Okay. Now I'm going to move to the editor. Here I will explain you the concept of the widening and the narrowing. I'm going to remove all the values. Let's change the name of the program. Type casting example. Typecasting example. Okay. Now, if I write int a equal to 10, comma, int b equal to 20, comma, int c equal to a plus b, okay, and system print ln c. Now in this case, all of you know that it will perfectly work, means accurately it will work, because int a is of the integer type data, b is also integer type data, and we are also storing into the same data type. So there will be no error and it will be perfectly it will work accurately. Okay, now if I suppose I have taken the one a variable and that variable is storing 10 value. Now if I take float f equal to a. Now in this case, you can see my a is of the integer type and I am trying to store into the float and f. Here if I write f and I'm taking another statement that is floats. There I am writing the a. Let's save the code. Okay. Hiding. The name of the program is type casting example dot java. It starts showing error, that is typecasting example dot java not found file. Okay, the file we have not saved the file. No? Let's save the code first. The file name is typecasting example dot java. Save the code. Now let's execute again. Now you can see there is no error as we had convert the one type of data into the another type of data. There a is of integer type and we had stored that integer type of data into the float type. Whenever automatically conversion is performed by the compiler, implicit conversion is performed whenever implicit conversion is performed by the compiler, then we called it the concept of the widening. We call that as the concept of widening. When automatically conversion is performed by the compiler itself, that is called the widening. This is an integer type data and this is a float type data, and automatically conversion is performed by the user. That is called the widening. That is automatically converted from the one type of data to the another type of data. Now I am going to change the values. Now I am going to change the values. Here I am going to write float f equal to 10.5 f. Taking this value, float f equal to 10.f5. Int a equal to f. Now I'm going to save the code. Now I'm trying to convert data from the float type to the integer type. Now let's see what will happen. Now you can see it starts generating error, showing that the error is incompatible types, possible lossy conversion from float to int, possible lossy conversion from float to int. Means we can't able to convert the floating value into the integer value, as floating is of the 4-bit memory that is occupied by the floating variable, that is, as you can see in this slide also, the memory that is the 4 bytes, but of the floating types. Okay. Similarly, integer also occupy the 4 bytes, but that is of the integer type. But that is not possible. Reverse is not possible. So this concept is called the narrowing. This concept is called the narrowing. This concept is narrowing, and means whenever there is a need of explicit conversion by the program, whenever there is need to help the programmer to convert the data, one type of data from the another type of data, when there is a need of writing something within the code to convert the one type of data into the another type, then it is called the narrowing. And the syntax to make this conversion possible, we will write here bracket. And which type of data type we want to convert? We want to convert it into integer type. So here I will write the int word. So here I will write the int word and close. Then now float f, floating value. Now this floating value will be converted explicitly by the programmer by writing this line. This line represents that convert this f into the integer and then store the value into the a. Now let's save this code and execute the code. Now there is no error. And you can see A starts showing the value 10 and F starts showing the value 10.5. If I remove this line and save the code again and execute the code, and you can see it starts generating error. It can't automatically, conversion is not possible in this case. Floating value can't be converted into the integer value. But if I want to convert the floating value into the integer word, then explicitly conversion is required. For that, I have to mention here within the brackets, I have to mention the data type in which I want to convert. If I want to convert it into integer type, then I have to write here integer int. Now let's save again. No error. And you can see the value will be in front of you. That is called the narrowing. That is called the